So it was the 90s, and my family was on our annual trip to Florida. We stayed in a rented condo and really didn't do much besides go to the beach and do other touristy things. My favorite thing that we did was like mini golf, but otherwise, I was actually kind of missing my weekly rotation of Nickelodeon shows. And it was Nickelodeon in the 90s, so it was really good. Not to say it wasn't good after that, but it's more like Nickelodeon just had this different energy. And a lot of those shows back then were shot in front of a live studio audience at Nickelodeon Studios in Universal Studios, Florida. I never dreamed I would get to see that iconic Nickelodeon studio. It just seemed to exist in like this fantasy realm to me. I had no idea what Universal Studios was either, and I had no idea really where it was. I mean, I know they said that it was Universal Studios, but I didn't know anything about Universal Studios. My family could afford one promotional VHS video through an ad in the newspaper because it was the 90s. And yeah, it was the Disney Renaissance, so we just got the Disney Parks promo videos twice. Then one year, on the annual trip, out of nowhere, complete surprise, I was told the next morning I would need to get up early because we were going to Universal Studios. I had no idea what was going on, and to be fair, I don't think my parents did either because I do not hail from people who do planning or spontaneity well. So, yeah, what was Universal Studios like back in the 90s? I don't remember a lot of things in my life, but the day at Universal Studios is burned into my child memory. And before we jump into what happened that day, I want to preface it by saying that I had two fears as a child: tornadoes and sharks. Just remember that. I was also not allowed to see the movie Jaws yet, but I had seen the movie Twister. That's because on the 13-hour drive to Florida, my brothers got to pick all of the movies. They're 4 and 5 years older than me, and they picked really cozy, child-friendly flicks like Tommy Boy and Mission Impossible 2. So, now let's begin our jaunt through my earliest memories of anxiety. Some quick hot tips on when you get to a theme park first thing in the morning. If you can, go left and definitely go to the most popular attraction that you really want to hit that day. Don't do what my family did and just mosey into the park and go to the very first thing you see, because otherwise you'll end up at the Alfred Hitchcock experience. I have no idea what they were thinking taking me in there because I was scared of movies that were just in black and white. I don't care what the genre was, black and white, I was scared. And I wasn't even old enough to watch scary movies. Not that this apparently mattered anymore, as we were like ushered into this 3D theater where we were given like the paper 3D glasses to put on that were really uncomfortable. And I put mine on, but during the movie portion, I just kind of like looked down and away from the screen, and then near the end I summoned enough courage to kind of just look up and see what was happening, and I allowed myself to not miss the part where it looks like the birds are breaking through the silver screen and attacking the audience. It was great. And then we went to a small auditorium where they were going to do a recreation of how they filmed the iconic shower murder scene from Psycho, and they got an audience participant for this, and they had him like dress up in an old woman's dress because Norman Bates used to dress like as his mother, and what they also had him wear was like, it looked like a sort of fence, like with the mask they wear in fencing, except it was black, so his face had just become this black hole. I mean, I'm saying it was cool now, but like 8 or 9-year-old me was just getting a new fear of getting killed in the shower. As the performance came to an end, the lights dimmed. The audience participant stalked toward the crowd, knife up. I thought that it was like they'd been possessed, like a murder was about to happen. And then he went over, stalked towards the shower, threw open the curtain, revealing the actual audience participant all along. They'd pulled switcheroo on us, which is actually very on brand for Hitchcock. Very cool as an adult, not so fun as a kid. And then the show led out into this interactive museum, which was actually kind of cool. They had a bunch of replicas from other Hitchcock films, like a carousel, a Statue of Liberty, and then they even did like recreations of how they shot other famous scenes from the films, none of which I recognize, but I enjoy old-timey movie magic, so now I would enjoy watching that, but back then I was actually pretty done. I was ready to go. So they led the way and we just left the production area of the park, headed toward the lagoon. We, like everyone else, went right. And I will never forget what we found. My child logic said that Jaws couldn't be in the ride because there was a giant fake plastic shark hanging outside the attraction that you could take pictures with. So, okay, he's not going to be in the ride because he's out there. I was trying to comfort myself with this child logic, but it really wasn't working. I was freaking out in line, and the closest thing I got to comfort was my vindictive older brother. He was the middle child, 4 years older than me, saying that, oh, Natalie, there are no sharks in this ride. No sharks. It's just a boat tour of Amity. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness. That was a lie. So the ride is dressed up indeed like a scenic boat tour of Amity where the movie takes place. And then you round a corner and you see a boat that looks just like yours sinking into the water, water geysers, and a dorsal fin. And you realize that you are going to be chased by Jaws through the whole thing. It's actually, if I want to get technical, actually, it's not Jaws. It's technically Brucette, which is the shark from the second film. The only person I could count on to protect my life in that moment was our skipper, Skipper Liz. And I remembered her name because she was far more comforting than my own family was in that moment. Plus, she had a grenade launcher. So that made her very cool in this situation. And so from there, the story has us like trying to escape Jaws. We go into like this dark, creepy boathouse. Our boat stalls, and then Jaws comes like bursting through the wall, and there's all this water, and then we escape, and she takes the grenade launcher and she tries to shoot Jaws, and she misses the shark. Instead, she hits like this like gas and oil barge or whatever, and like there's this wall of flames that comes up, and it's like we're trapped with a shark. And what happens next is actually very dependent on what kind of skipper you have. I don't remember what Skipper Liz did. I think my favorite thing I've seen a skipper do is, and this was in a YouTube video, is uncap a bottle of water, and then in perfect timing with the flames extinguishing, she just kind of like did this motion as if she used the bottled water to put out the fire. So that was very cute. Points to her. I don't remember what Liz did, but we did charge forward, and then we like went past this like high voltage barge whatever, and she started talking about how we were going to evacuate onto the dock. I was ready. Let's go. And then Jaws comes up, and it's like it's about to bite into the boat, and then suddenly instead bites down on an underwater electric cable, and it shocks and fries itself. It's amazing. It's so cool. And the image was burned into my mind. I've seen it in nightmares. And it was dead, and I was finally enjoying myself. Otherwise, I'd kind of call that the longest 5 minutes of my life. All right, we survived Jaws. Now we're continuing counterclockwise on the lagoon. Actually, for you, it's like this. So what we did from there is we went to just the next attraction. Right next door was Earthquake, the big one. Ugh. I didn't even know that this was actually based on a film from the 60s or 70s, but there was a pre-show, and they demonstrated how they did the special effects in that movie using a city model. But really, I don't remember a whole lot about the pre-show. I mostly remember the part where we got into like this open subway train. They call it a subway train, but obviously it was not a subway train. It was very clearly the tram that they used in the Universal Studios Hollywood Tram Tour, because I'm pretty sure that this ride was pulled directly from that. This tram subway hybrid rolls into the station in San Francisco when an 8.3 earthquake hits. What happens is a series of practical effects, like the cars getting jostled, and then the street above like collapses, and an oil tanker comes down and nearly hits the train but gets stopped by a column, and then water starts gushing out of broken water lines. There's fire, you're still rocking around, the fire creeps towards the oil tanker, and you just know as soon as it hits, you're all going to be burst into a horrible flame, and those who won't be incinerated immediately are going to drown. And then the ride ends. Actually, it's really, really short. But it was really cool to sit through. And then they actually let you see the whole ride reset itself, which is like really, really satisfying. So after the incredible third time when I didn't die, we continued counterclockwise on the lagoon. We passed Beetlejuice's Graveyard Review because we like missed the most recent showtime. Not to imply that like we meant to go to it. That would suggest planning was involved, but there was none, which is actually kind of a shame because I've seen videos of it on YouTube. It looks like it would have been something I would have enjoyed as a kid. No, what we did is we went into the Newark area's main attraction next because I just had not gotten my fill of being threatened by animatronics that day. The show building to confrontation was innocuous enough. It was designed to look like the Pennsylvania station in New York City. Not that I had any idea what that looks like then or now. The queue was also like this really neat graffiti-riddled subway station, although I guess technically a tram station. And in the queue there are also these like TV monitors showing like news reports of King Kong rampaging in New York City. And it was also giving us some story beats explaining how us were being evacuated on the Roosevelt Island tram, and that Kong had already destroyed 2 trams, so chances of survival pretty slim. Unlike Jaws, once I got into the tram, I was not seated on any like edge where I would get a lot of like up close and personal like views of King Kong. I was actually more towards the very center of the tram, which made me feel way better about the whole ride. In fact, I think that actually let me enjoy it a little bit. I had it in my head that if anyone was going to die first, it would be the people on the sides. So the Skytram took us through this really marvelous set of New York City just in fire and destroyed, and it was really fun to look at. Like there were these destroyed police helicopters, there were like destroyed fire hydrants, just fire everywhere. I like it now. I think back then I was just a little confused as to what was going on because it was also difficult for me to look over the adults and see the stuff from the very center where I was sitting. So at some point, at 2 points in the ride, you get really close to King Kong, and he's supposed to have this like banana breath, but I didn't smell it, and I did check. They actually do. Well, they did give him banana breath. I would say the most action-packed thing that kind of happens is the tram does do like a drop. It's supposed to be like Kong picks up the tram and then drops it, but you escape safely. We walked out of the ride into a gift shop, and there was like this mock-up of King Kong, and like his hand was out, and the whole family could get up into the hand, and there was a photographer, and you had to scream. All of you had to scream loud enough to make the fake King Kong thing like roar, because that's a thing. And my family had to do it twice. I promise I was screaming as loud as I could, just getting out the anxiety. I swear, you can't beat being threatened by animatronics. So at this point, we'd gone as far as we could counterclockwise. Then we had to start like going south, back toward the park entrance, and it was time for my big fear. We've got sharks, and now we've got Race Through New York with Jimmy Fallon. No, but close. So for Twister, Write It Out, there were a couple of pre-shows, and they were really just us watching clips from the movie Twister that came out in, I think, when I want to say 1996. And in the opening, you see Helen Hunt's character as a little girl who wasn't much younger than I was at the time, watching her father be killed by this monstrous F5 tornado. And she was just standing there screaming, and I just remember feeling like I was looking into my very near future. From there, Bill Paxton comes on. He plays like the lead, and he describes like the devastation and the wonder of tornadoes. And then Helen Hunt comes on a separate screen because they just couldn't be filmed together because they hated each other. I actually didn't know this until the last few years, but my roommate, her mom was actually a real life equivalent to Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt's characters. She was a storm chaser using the same equipment in the movie to study tornadoes, and she never brings it up as like a fun way to spice up a conversation. You actually have to ask her about it. but she did like this movie. They really want to play up the power and destruction of a tornado before you go on the ride. And, you know, this was not exactly new to me per se. I mean, I'd already grown up dealing with tense tornado warnings every spring and summer. I remember like years ago, like this sporting goods store that my family and I used to go to all the time was like decimated by a tornado. My point here is, unlike the Jaws ride, having a fear of tornadoes was very relevant to me and still is. And the second pre-show actually managed to be worse than the first. You walk into this set. It's actually kind of really cool. It looks like a house that was just hit by a tornado. So you see like a running car in the ceiling. You see a bunch of stuff in the ceiling that should not be in the ceiling. And then there's also like these boards that are like torn from the wall, all of this exposed brick. And there's this creaking sound, like the foundation is cracked and the whole house is about to collapse. I think my favorite part of like this whole like pre-show script is when they call the tornado the finger of God. And when I was younger, I thought they meant the index finger. And they also refer to it as a demon spirit at another point. It's like they can't seem to pick if the tornado is from heaven or hell. And then like the second pre-show ends with us being told by Bill Paxton that all we can do is hold on for our lives. And then the lights go out, a siren starts wailing, these red warning lights turn on, and someone yells, "Everyone out of the house now!" And now is the time for the main attraction, the part I'd been dreading the most the whole time since I realized that this is what we would be doing today. So imagine it, we are ushered onto like this 3-tiered standing area with metal railings kind of barring off each one. My family's on the second tier near the center, so we have a great view of the whole set. And the set is actually made to look like the one from the movie, which is set in Wichita, Oklahoma. So you have a diner over here, a gas station here, a drive-in movie theater. You have some telephone poles with a transformer. You have like trees, the whole setup. And then lightning strikes, splitting a tree. A storm approaches. In the distance, you see a green, billowing form of a twister. Dramatic music plays. The lights go out in the diner, and flashlight beams flicker across the glass. The twister is here! A vortex of air and smoke swirls before us as transformer sparks. The drive-in sign is torn in two, and a giant prop, I think it was a cow, flies overhead. Everything is shuddering, leaning, and breaking. Lights flicker overhead. The gas station leaks oil, leading to a fire. The fire combines with the twister, creating this great column of flames. I'm hugging the thin metal railing for my life. And yeah, from there we just like walked off into the gift shop. I don't remember what was in there, but I would like to note that in one of the ride-throughs I watched for this, I saw a lady holding like a coffee cup. So now I just really wish that I could go on the ride and, you know, just be drinking like some kind of like oat milk latte and just be casually enjoying the violence and wreckage. And the next natural stop after this was to Nickelodeon Studios. So, know how I said that one of the things I was looking forward to the most, if not the, was Nickelodeon Studios and Universal Studios, Orlando, Florida. Well, that's actually probably the part that I remember the least. At that point, I was probably very hot and my nerves were just shot. It was very exciting just to be inside. I was excited and happy to be there. I just don't remember it as well. Probably because like once I was sitting down for like the show, I probably just took that time to enjoy being in the AC out of the sun and just sitting down. I was entertained though, because the show was like based on Double Dare 3000 or something. They did take audience participants. I did not want to be one of them because I don't know what anyone knows here about Double Dare, but it was a messy show. It involved like slime, peanut butter, jelly, whipped cream, just all sorts of crazy stuff and these weird challenges, and it all looked like it took way more energy than I was willing to give anyway. So I was happy that I did get to go into Nickelodeon Studios while it was still a thing. It was very iconic, and I am happy that I got to do it, but I don't remember it very well. After that, we kind of did a little bit of a split. The guys in the family went to the Terminator attraction, which I've looked at in videos on YouTube. It was very cool. I, however, finally got to go to something my speed. I knew most of the Hanna-Barbera cartoons because back in the day, Cartoon Network, I don't know if they just didn't have much money, but they played just a mix of Hanna-Barbera cartoons and Looney Tunes. Disney was a premium channel back then, so when I went to watch TV, I was watching Nickelodeon, and if nothing good was on Nickelodeon that I wanted to watch, then I watched Cartoon Network. So I was very ready for the Hanna-Barbera experience. I was so excited about that one, and it's very simple. It was just another motion simulator ride. You go into this theater with a bunch of cute little red cars, and you climb into like one, and then like this lap bar comes down and the ride vehicle moves along with the movie. It was so cute. I loved it. I saw all these characters I'd seen on TV a million times. Kids love it. I loved it. It was fantastic. And then the ride ended, and the lap bars, I'm guessing someone at a console must hit a button and it makes all the metal lap bars just come up and release everyone to leave. I had my arm resting in a way that when the metal lap bar came up, my arm got caught in it, and I was being pulled with the lap bar, and my arm was starting to get bent in an unnatural way, and it was going higher than I could stand, and I was panicking, and I was like silently screaming. I was too scared to actually cry out to my mother, who was sitting right next to me doing I have no idea what, but thankfully I think it was like some college aged employee saw me panicking and scrambling, and they came over, and he like kind of like lifted me so he could get my arm out, and oh my gosh. And then somehow my day still wasn't over.
Between the two vehicles should send us straight back to the Institute.
I say it like that, but I'm not actually going to complain about anything here. Everything was perfect at the Back to the Future ride. I have zero complaints. That was probably maybe the best ride, maybe my best experience at the park that day. The story begins as soon as you get into the queue at the Institute of Future Technology run by Doc Brown. And the idea is that you are a time travel volunteer for a time travel experiment. The catch here is that Biff, the antagonist from the movies, he has infiltrated the Institute and escaped one of the time-traveling DeLoreans. So you need to get into your own DeLorean, hit 88 miles per hour, and then like bump Biff and send him through a time vortex back into the Institute. It makes total sense. It's much science. It was so cool. I remember it so well, and for years I thought that I had my memory all wrong here, because I remembered it as just me and my family entering like this garage like room with a single DeLorean inside, and then we climb inside, and it's nice because I'm sitting down, it's air conditioned, and I can like lean back and relax. That was like that was a big deal to me. It's a big deal to this day. So then the movie starts playing and the car moves along with it. Another motion simulator ride, of course. And, it felt like it was just us going on our own time travel adventure. I really loved it. The ride setup was so cool. This was not my first motion simulator ride at all. I feel like I went on a lot back in the day. I wonder if they were like a new thing. I don't know. But it was just, I'd never been on one that felt so personal, so one-on-one. Reality is that we weren't actually the only people in that theater. The whole thing was purposefully designed to make it feel like it was just us. But in reality, we were at an Omnimax theater with 3 tiers and 4 cars on each tier. And somehow the movie, it was all set up to make each car feel like they were like in the center watching the ride film play out from the center, and not really feel like other people are in there unless you're actually looking around looking for other people. And I just felt like that was a really brilliant kind of setup. Leaving there, I felt in really high spirits, but I was also feeling really tired because I think by the time we got out of there, it was dark and the Lagoon stunt show was going on. Yeah, I didn't really enjoy the Lagoon stunt show either. It was a lot, and I was exhausted. I feel like it was the Lagoon stunt show. It was either done like this John Woo inspired action fest sort of style, or is based on the movie Waterworld. I was really too tired to remember it, I think, but it was just not up my alley. I really wasn't up for it. It's too much fire, too much fake gunfire. But my oldest brother, he was very smart. He took this time to actually go back into the Back to the Future ride. Another quick tip here is that if you're at a park and fireworks start up or a parade starts, especially fireworks, this is a great time to actually get on a ride because the lines are going to be a little bit shorter while everyone else goes to see the show. So Tom got on Back to the Future. He had a great time. And yeah, it was the best ride. It was just the best ride. Alright, guys, the night is winding down. I'm exhausted. When is dinner? Fittingly, we finally go to the very last ride, and it is a ride that you can still hit up today because Steven Spielberg fought for this ride to remain standing, and it is E.T.
Uh-oh. Scrabble.
We've got some unauthorized people entering the base. Wait, they got E.T. They're getting away. Unit 3, cut them off.
I'd never actually seen the movie E.T., but I was very aware of it, especially like the part that pop culture loves to reference, which is when they're on the bicycles and they fly up in the air. So I understood that the ride was going to be like that. But then my very unhelpful second oldest brother, who you may remember from the Jaws ride live, there being no sharks, told me that we had to ride bicycles for the ride, that was going to be required. I was going to have to get onto a bike and pedal through the ride. So the forest queue was very relaxing while I had my 5th silent panic attack of that day. I imagine getting on a bike and trying to ride it, then just falling right over in front of everyone, my family, the ride operators, people waiting in line, and everyone just staring at me and not helping. We also came up to this worker who was asking for the names of all the kids in like each group, each party, and I was too young to think that was kind of creepy, but I heard my name, and that made me happy. I was acknowledged. Anyway, the ride vehicles were bike-shaped, and they operated really just like the flying ships in the Peter Pan ride at like Disney World. You're being like held from like the ceiling, so that actually like gives this feeling, this sense of flight. And it's really just a dark ride. I actually really enjoyed myself. You go through a few scenes from the movie, and then you fly up into the sky, and you actually fly all the way to E.T.'s home planet, which was weird, but I was actually kind of into it. It was, a little magical. It was kind of cool. And then, at the very end, you see E.T., and he looks weird. And then E.T. said my name. Thank you, Natalie. If you know me, then everything I just said explains everything about me, down to why I drink so much water, because I was very dehydrated that day. And, for as life-changing and really special as that visit to Universal was, I actually never kept up with that park and all the changes it went through over the years. And it's gone through massive changes because everything I just talked about is no longer there except the E.T. ride. And you know that E.T. ride is only going to stand until Universal tells Spielberg that a completely untraceable, very mysterious, conveniently contained fire destroyed it. And they already broke Spielberg's heart by letting the Orca 5 from the original Jaws ride just rot and then dispose of the corpse. Without telling him. Will I ever go there ever again? I mean, I'm not against going back. It's just not top of my list right now. I haven't looked into it a whole lot. I just know that they really got into like the Wizarding World of Harry Potter because that is a big name IP. Personally, I'm not really big on like going there. I've briefly looked into the food and nothing really like jumped out and inspired me to, spend my money and get there. Because these days, I'm really more of an I'll come for the food and stay for the rides kind of girl. That's really why I want to go to Disney World for my birthday. Until the dark days made that unwise. Until that convenient fire happens, you can still go ride E.T. If you can, do it. It's fun. It's cute. I like dark rides. I know I probably just spent, a half hour like talking about how scared I was that day, but really, if I could go back and relive any day in my childhood, I would choose that day every single time. And I know that Child Nat was really scared, but she also enjoyed getting to live through these multiple brushes with death as she saw them. And I just have like a huge appreciation now for all of those rides, all of the technical aspects, all the different stories that you just get to kind of experience. And this mission that Universal had back then was to make you feel like you were in the movies, like you were part of that. So I'm just really happy that I got to experience this out of reality day, and I would love to do it again.
Awesome! Yeah? Great! Did you see the shark? Yeah. Tell us about the shark. Big. Came right at us. This one screamed all